Wow.
So exciting.
So exciting for you. I mean, look at all of these people who came to see you.
I'm so happy to be
LA.
back with you.
I know, it's been a minute.
I mean, you were the first person I thought of. I was like, who would I want to ask me questions?
That's so nice. You don't understand, because I grew up, my sister Christina is here tonight. We grew up on your music, listening to your music in our family's minivan, and every single day after school, and watching your music videos. And I was actually reflecting with my brother Patrick last night, because I used to walk by his room all the time, and he'd be watching all your music videos with his little teenage guy friends. He'd be like, she's so hot. I'm like, I know. So it's this whole big full circle moment for me. But you and I originally met like 10 years ago.
Yes.
Which is a lot has changed.
Yes, and I got engaged to Eric like 2 weeks later.
He was just telling me that backstage, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you
But
guys
it was
are
a
married.
powerful moment in my life. Like, your mother was such an inspiration. You were such an inspiration.
Oh,
so thank you for that, because
Thank
y'all really were uplifting me through a crisis of international bullying.
Yeah. We'll get to what we were talking about in a little bit, but you were obviously here to discuss your amazing book. I just finished it yesterday. I read it very detailed. I took notes on it the entire time. I said this to you backstage, but as a fan of yours growing up, reading this book for me was a nostalgic and exciting experience. You went into every single detail humanly possible, spared
I did.
absolutely no one, including yourself. I mean, you really went there in every single level of the book. Before we get into it, you're coming off of a week tour since your book has been out.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I had yesterday off to just kind of catch up on some TV shows, just kind of reflecting on the week, because I mean, it was a long week, but at least I took my children with me.
I know, I was just talking to you about that backstage.
Yeah, I took my children with me. That way I could at least tuck them in at night and feel like I was still home, especially after a lot of hard interviews. I mean, our work days were from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. So it was a lot. It was a lot of talking about myself.
Yeah.
I have definitely gone through a lot of therapy in this week.
You can tell that by the book. I also have gone through a lot of therapy, and you can see that in the book, how much you've learned about yourself. So I commend you on that, because that
Thank you.
Takes a lot
It's
of
very
courage.
important. It's important that we know ourselves and what our true calling in life is, to go back to that child and that purpose that you felt at the very beginning, and to just revisit that person and revisit her as a woman, especially having children, and how you want to raise your children, and the role model that you want to be for them. So it was. I mean, therapy was the hardest part of sobriety for me. But it was also the most meaningful part, because through therapy, I just found so much clarity and so much acceptance of who I am and who the woman I want to be, and who the woman is inside of me. That is actually very secure, and I really own, my mistakes, and I lead with them. And I think that it's important for people to know that, people like us in the spotlight and stuff, we're not perfect. We're just like everybody else. And that's really what I wanted to do, was to be able to relate to people as, as human as possible, and to know that I'm just like everyone else,
Well, you definitely did that in this book, and I think you did it really well, and you can tell that you've done a tremendous amount of work on yourself. I think you see that in your relationship, the amazing relationship that you're in today with your children, and it's a definite constant theme throughout the book that I want to talk about for sure, because I think it's admirable and courageous that you're so open about your therapy, because I think a lot of people, especially in your position, would not be. And I think it's helpful for everybody, especially your fans. And speaking of your fans, Throughout the book, you talk a lot about traveling. Of course, you had a huge and still have a huge music career. This is your first book, though.
Yes, it is.
And I was thinking that the audience and your interactions with your fans must be dramatically different, or maybe not, from how you interact with your fans after a concert or before a concert versus on this book tour. Have you found that at all?
Yeah, I mean, my fans have remained very consistent, and they are the reason why I know that God gave me a voice, whether it's through music or through my words or through standing up for what I believe in. Within doing a reality show, I was in people's homes. People saw me as the girl next door that I really am, and they saw me as that. And to connect with my fans now who have grown up with me and are now women, it's very empowering, and it's also very humbling to know that people have stayed with me and they can really understand me even more through this book, because I was so private the last 10 years of my life, because I wasn't writing music. I wasn't on stage and expressing what the songs were about and what was going on in my life. I really just was trying to figure it all out before I could stand strong in front of the world again.
Was there a common theme that you've seen with people who've come up to you and talked to you about your book that you've noticed people talking to you about?
There's a lot. I mean, the book covers a lot of different things.
A lot.
And everything from the hardest stuff, the sexual abuse, and I actually had my daughter with me at one of the signings, and she was sitting next to me because she wanted to sign autographs too. And it was very sweet, because it was a powerful moment, because a woman came up to me and she said that her daughters had experienced the same thing, and now they will know that they're not alone. And Maxwell looked over to me and she's like, "Mom, what are they talking about?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just trying to tell people about the hurt that I experienced when I was young, so they can know how to parent their children." And Maxwell really understood it, because last night when we were praying together, she prayed for all the mean people that they would find love in their hearts to protect the children of the world. And I was like, wow, she got that in that very moment. So that was a powerful moment to be able to share with my daughter, you know. But everybody coming up to me, it's like they've been through a lot of manipulative relationships, whether it's with their own self or with other men or other women, and somehow just even excerpts in the book that have been used in magazines have inspired them to go deep within themselves and understand that relationships should be two-sided,
right.
Not just for the other person in the relationship.
What does that feel like for you, hearing that your book, or you being vulnerable in these pages of these book, has changed someone else's life or made them feel like they're not alone? How's that feel?
I mean, when I was 12 years old, I was at a church camp, and I grew up with my father being a Baptist minister,
Yes.
and his father was a Baptist minister as well, and being a preacher's daughter, you would always think, even at a young age, that I did have a clearer perspective on faith and things like that, but it was a moment where I felt God in the realest of ways. And the pastor was saying, I feel somebody in this room being called to use their voice. And I knew in that moment, I felt like some sort of spiritual connection, and I just started running down the aisle, and I was like, it's my voice. It's my voice. I know that God's going to use me. And, I call my dad and my mom, and I'm like, well, I'm going to be a minister. And they're like, oh, I don't know about that, because, there's a lot of stuff in the church that does go on that my parents wanted to protect me from. But at a very young age, I felt a need to use my voice. And so I did start journaling through a lot of grief in my life when I lost my cousin who was very close to me, and I was 15. And so I started all those conversations with God, and I started realizing that my purpose in life was to lead others to the other side and to understand how to be truly happy, and that was within sharing my mistakes and my realities and, just my personal conversations with myself and with God. So like at a very young age, I felt this calling, and I see it unfolding so much now that I'm a woman and I'm able to own my mistakes and lead with them and champion through them.
I want to talk about your faith, because I think in moments like this, for a lot of people, and also throughout your book, you mentioned several moments where one's faith could be tested. You just mentioned you felt this calling, and throughout the book, you have very well documented moments throughout your life and your career, the ups and downs that you have where your faith has been the one thing that has seemed to stay constant.
Yes.
Which I think is really impressive. It seems to have never wavered at all. And I think that's obviously how you were raised, your family. But I'm wondering what kind of a role faith has played in you getting through the challenging times, but also the amount of challenging times that you've been open with in this book. How big of a role your faith has played in that?
My faith is everything to me. It is the essence of who I am. I mean, when I felt in my life alone or that nobody was listening, I always knew that I had God. And God is the conversations that I would have in my head and within my journalings, he was the constant. Like, I saw that faith was what got me through so many things, and it was and so many people tried to steal my light, whether it was within relationships or bullying or whatever it may be. My faith was one thing that never wavered because I felt so confident and comfortable that God was going to use the dark moments and make them into something that showed everyone that were willing to listen that connection, that there is no stronger connection than the purpose that we have. And only we know that. We know our purpose. And a lot of my conversations with God, there was many questions. Why does this have to happen? Why am I having to go through this? Please teach me the lessons. Please show them to me. And I've learned throughout time that God does answer all of our prayers. Maybe not the next day, maybe not the next week, but it could be 10 years later. It could be in moments where you least expect it. Then you understand God was answering your prayers all along.
All in His time.
All in His time.
Yeah.
And it's not about our time. It's about His timing, and it's about His purpose, and not anything that everybody else, not all the expectations that record execs, record labels, anybody in the industry puts on you. It's really about, in due time, your time will happen to make a positive change in the world and hopefully help other women and men love themselves for who they are, no matter what they stand for, no matter what mistakes they've made in their life, no matter what choices, we always, there's always a bump in the road. There's always a mistake that we make, but there's always the road that we get back on somehow because of that prayer and relationship that we can have with ourselves and with God.
I loved that theme in this book. I grew up in a Catholic family and going to church, and we still go to church. It's been a huge part of our life. But I loved that even in your darkest moments, it's easy for people's faith to waver. Mm-hmm. And you kept saying, God, use me. God, use me. How are you using me? I want to learn. And I thought that was really incredible because you do share very dark moments in this mm-hmm. book. You talk about hitting rock bottom at a certain point, and I think that you never questioned what God was doing, if he was with you, if he had left you.
No, yes, because I do know that he never leaves me and never forsakes me, and it's all these scriptures that I would hear my dad preach, and I truly understood it at a very young age, and I saw the divine purpose through all of the hard moments. Like, I saw that there was light, and I saw that there was, a path to walk on that was my own. Mm-hmm. And it always gave me so much strength, because there are so many moments in our lives where we're very insecure and overwhelmed and feel like we don't want to wake up the next morning because we're scared of what tomorrow will bring. But I do know that it is through God that all things are possible. Mm-hmm. And anything that we go through in our lives, we are strong enough to face head on. Mm-hmm. If we're honest with ourselves, and getting to that place is a very beautiful place, because we have nothing to hide from our own selves. And that's what journaling really taught me, and that's what my faith really taught me, is that there is nothing that we can't do mm-hmm. without, yes, there might be fear, but there's always so much strength and fear if you don't let it defeat you. Mm-hmm. If you can actually walk through that fear and get to the other side of it, then everything, you understand so much more. And with the therapy, I wrote this book. When I chose to get sober and take alcohol out of my life, I had so much clarity, and I ended up, within maybe a week of therapy, I was like, this is the time where I actually have to write the book. Because I had offers to do major book deals about lifestyle and how to live your best self. And I didn't know how to be my best self. I didn't know. I had to turn these big offers down, and everybody was so confused as to why I was turning these down, because it felt like on the outside that I had everything together. Right. Because I know how to do that. I've been a performer since I was very young. But like doing my actual homework on myself, I started to understand that with the clarity and with the therapy and all of it combined, I just had the answers. Mm-hmm. Like, I had the answers for my own struggles. Mm-hmm. And I found a way to hopefully speak to so many different people through these dark moments that were all of a sudden not as hard anymore, mm-hmm. because I was honest about them.
So speaking of your sobriety, we'll jump around a little bit. You opened the book by talking about a Halloween party that you were having at your house, where you describe that being your rock bottom, mm-hmm. and you having this wake-up call to become sober. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It was Halloween 2017, and before that, like a month before that, I had pulled out all of my old journals to go into the studio to start writing my first album in like 7 years. And it's always through my journals that I do pull, and through my experiences that I do pull from, you know, as like my creativity from. We all, you know, like I don't want to be up on stage singing about what a perfect life I have, or like dancing through things that didn't feel like I should be dancing through. I'm not really that good of a dancer anyway, but you know, it's just like so in the writing process of music, I realized like I was starting to spiral because I was having to drink more to cover up the pain of what I hadn't dealt with in my life, and it just all kind of like was falling on top of me, the weight of the world. And I played my father the music on Halloween 2017, and this was the first music that he was listening to that he wasn't managing my career. And I was so afraid. I was so afraid that because I didn't do it with him, that it wasn't going to be as powerful. And my dad just cried like a baby and said, "This is the best music that you have ever done." And I didn't have a place for that music. But in that moment, all the lights came on to me that I was actually hiding from myself. And I knew the only way to not hide from myself was to show up for myself. And that was through giving up the alcohol. But I mean, I never let alcohol, I thought I didn't. I thought I wasn't letting the alcohol defeat me, when really it was. I thought it was calming my anxiety and making me more free and open to be myself, when really it was causing me to hide, you know. And it was through the music that I actually was broken open to write the book and to be sober. And you know, I just, on Halloween, alcohol never affected me where I would like pass out. Like I wasn't one of those people that drank and got super angry, or, I mean, people didn't really know. I mean, my friends eventually told me that they were worried about me and they were planning an intervention, and they saw my life spiraling because I just wasn't being myself. But normally I'd be the person that would stay up the latest and tuck everybody in and make sure that everybody was okay, and I was always the caretaker, even through the alcohol. But really, I had to find my way back to myself, and that was only through, you know, I can't remember who got my kids ready that night, and that was rock bottom for me, to not be there on a very special night for my children. I mean, I was there, I was Willie Nelson, but I was definitely hiding behind the piece of Willie. I was happy to that I could be in costume because I was so broken. And I didn't end up taking the kids trick-or-treating. I fell asleep on the stairs. I don't even take naps pregnant, you guys. So the fact that I had gotten to that place where I was emotionally destroyed, and could actually fall asleep on my stairs, and my kids could see it, I realized, okay, at this time they were 4 and 5, and I wasn't raised with alcohol in my house. I never knew how I was going to explain it to my kids or anything like that, because I didn't really know my stance on it anymore, because I had gotten lost in it. And I just, the next day, it was just, I woke up with half my beard on. You know, I actually had this still magnolias moment, because all of my friends were coming over, because we were getting our hair colored, and I just wanted to change. I'm like, bleach my hair, I need to look like Andy Warhol. So if you ever hear your friends say that, that might be a big red flag. But yeah, no, it was like in that moment where I was just like, I'm done. I'm ready. I got to surrender.
That was your rock bottom.
That was rock bottom for me.
What do you think has been the best part of getting sober?
Now I'm not stressed out about anything that I reveal in the book, whereas normally I would, try and protect myself, but I realized that being open is my way of freeing myself. And, and for my children to embrace the book and to one day they do have it. They bought it at Barnes & Noble the other night. And they made me sign it because they saw that everybody else was doing it.
So sweet.
But, just those moments, like the moments that I now get to experience are real moments and nothing that I have to hide from. And I just am completely present in all of these like victories for my children and putting them down every night and showing up in my own life and showing up for myself as the best, positive influence that I could be for my children.
So you talk about, you just mentioned really just going there when it comes to everything in the book. You have no more secrets. I was reading this book, and there were moments where I was like, oh wow, you really went there.
Girl, you went there.
Really just, you really did though. You really just laid it all out there. You went into the good, amazing, beautiful times in your life, the ugly times in your life, the dark times in your life, challenging times. Were there ever moments when you were writing your book when you were either writing about yourself or someone in your life where you felt like, oh, maybe, do I want to write that, or should I write, do you think that's okay, or did you have like any anxiety with the idea that this would be living in this book? Or do you just, no. My God, that's amazing. It's so amazing.
Absolutely not.
So great.
Because I know that people wouldn't understand if I didn't give the full truth. And for me, giving the full truth and my perspective on things and the pain of things and the realization and just recognizing what I was allowing to happen in my life, whether it be manipulative relationships, which I know everybody's probably heard about in this room, and as far as like sexual abuse, like I had already confronted my abuser, and I had gone through moments of just finding peace through all of it, and there was really no judgment that people could place upon me because you can't judge somebody for giving you their whole truth. That there's no way that somebody could come at me and say that I'm wrong because I'm not, because it's my story.
Right.
And I know that I'm not wrong. I show you my weakness, I show you my flaws. And I think that that's the beauty, is that in your weakness and in your flaws, that's where you find purpose, and that's how you find ways to heal and to move forward and to help other people do the same.
Do you look at this book as being a key part of your healing journey?
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, it was like I would be in therapy and then I'd go straight into writing. I'd be in therapy, I'd go straight into writing. And it was just like I just had so much awareness of and acceptance and love for myself in the broken moments, in the hard times. I forgave myself, and I was in a place where I knew that pain, like it only made me human. Like I didn't have to be perfect, and I don't strive for perfection anymore. It's really just about being as authentic as you possibly can, and in that place is where the beauty is.
I imagine that writing this book is similar to your journaling experience. You mentioned it a couple
lot
times.
of it is from my journals.
Yeah, and in the inside, for those of you who haven't read this book, it is, in the inside of it, when I first opened the book, I loved you can see little kind of snippets and clippings of your journal.
Yes.
You talk about journaling really when you lost your cousin Sarah, and also going through moments in your life where you stopped journaling.
There would be moments where I would stop journaling because I didn't want to face the truth. Because when I had a pen in my hand and I opened the journal to start writing, I knew that only truth would come out, because that it was my, that page was an empty page, and some of my journals are empty, and I would just skip pages. Like, okay, let's skip these days because I wasn't in the place where I could be honest with myself, and I was afraid. But when I saw the moments that I was strongest, it was actually like, when I was being vulnerable. And I found out so much about myself just by writing it down and owning it, because and then it's like one of those things where, like, when I was younger, because my cousin died at such a young age and she kept journals, I thought that when I released my journals, or when I would die, that people would have my journals and it would be a legacy that would live on, like it was for Sarah, because it changed so many people's lives with everything, with how connected she was with God and with herself and with her purpose, that, I thought it was just going to be something that I was going to leave behind in life. But I realized that there's so much more life to live, and my memoir would be about 800 pages if I waited any longer.
You could do a second volume of it.
Yeah, right.
But I think it was interesting because you weren't journaling before you lost your cousin Sarah, and also the faith part of that came into play when your dad had her journals and saw in her journals that every single day she prayed for you, which I thought was beautiful. Are you still journaling?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You have those locked up somewhere, nice and safe.
Well, actually, they're all in here. But no. Yes. I mean, but through all of this, I've been writing, a lot of things down, and I'm in the process of writing music for an album, so that in itself is journaling for me. Yes, because, growing up and living in, this, when I was younger, and what pop culture was, it was all of a sudden I went from being a preacher's daughter to being over-sexualized, and it was very confusing to me that I had a record label telling me that I needed to lose 15 pounds to wear crop tops and dance around with head mics.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, this brought back some memories. And I was like, wait, I thought I already was Jessica Simpson. Wait, I have to lose 15 pounds to be Jessica Simpson? I'm already 115 pounds. I'm 19 years old. And, it for me, like, I was so caught up in, like, questioning who I was as an artist. And now coming at it in my life, I'm just myself as an artist, and that in itself is the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. So this music that I've been writing, and the songs that are with the audiobook for Open Book, were the songs that I wrote the month before I got sober. And a couple songs that I wrote, well, one song called Heart Bia is the song that was the first song that I wrote 30 days into sobriety. And the person that I was writing with, John Shanks, he's also sober, and he was very proud of me, but he was like, no, I was like, aren't you so proud of me? It's been 30 days. He goes, I'll give you a cake when it's a year,
People like
I haven't
that.
gotten that cake, and it's definitely been a year.
I love that.
But yes, I do journal still, but now that's being put into music. So my words that I do, write down, I feel I should share with the world always.
Yeah.
There's no words that I just keep for myself unless it's something for Eric or a love letter to my children or something.
I think it's a beautiful thing because you do it in a way that's not, gossipy or negative, but you do it in a way you can tell throughout this book that your desire is really to help others and to empower other women to be true to themselves. And you just touched on a huge theme in your book, which is body image. And you and I actually originally met 10 years ago because we were on a panel discussing body image.
We were.
And we were talking all about the pressures that the media puts on women of all ages to look and be a certain way, to really be everything but your true authentic self.
Yep.
And you grew up daughter of a preacher, so much more covered up, and then we're quickly told that
Very much more covered up.
we're quickly told that in order to be successful that you needed to,
Take it all off.
Yeah,
Yes.
literally take it all off. I mean, show your stomach, your chest more, and you see the theme of body image being kind of tracked and navigated throughout your book and throughout the different events of your life. And I wonder, I know that, we talked about this 10 years ago, but since becoming a mother and also just living your life, how your body image has changed over those years.
I'm just like everybody else. We look at our reflection in the mirror and we don't always like what we see, and there's always flaws, that we have that we feel like can never be fixed. I'll have good days and I'll have bad days, but as a young woman going through, like in my 20s, going through what I did, and even in my teens, the big thing was the mom jeans. That for me, that chapter, death by mom jeans. I almost did die over that. But really, there are journal entries in there where I would pinch my fat in front of the mirror until it would bruise because I just didn't understand how I could diet and then how it would not go away and how I couldn't look like Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera and dance around and do the choreography and sing at the same time. And, I felt like I wasn't, being myself, and I didn't know how to own my body because everybody was telling me how to own it. And to be bullied over it was extremely hard because in those moments, I was trying to be so confident on stage, and especially in the mom jeans incident, I was up there absolutely owning this chili cook-off, and I really liked the way I looked, and
Which, by the way, you look back on those pictures, because I, of course, was I just need to refresh my memory, and you're just you look so great and so cute, and then you read about it in the book, and that you're a size 4, you were under 120 pounds, and then you look at those pictures, and you're just people bullied you for that.
It hurt me for myself, but it also hurt me for other women. It hurt me that women had to look at that and think that that was fat and compare themselves to that, and that killed me because that is not what I stood for by any means. And the fact that the world was torturing me through those moments, I would have people come up to me in the airport just saying, "Oh, you're not that big in real life." "Oh, well, thank you." I guess. But it hurt me for other women. And I did feel like I needed to stand up for other women. So I didn't go on a crash diet after that. Throughout my life, I had taken diet pills and stuff like that, but I wanted to make a point to where I was not going to lose weight. Like, I wanted to show women that I was embracing myself and my figure and my curves. I mean, I can't always be Daisy Duke, you know? Like, I mean,
you even talk about when you were in your Daisy Dukes and filming that role that you were still unhappy with your body.
Yes, because, you know, I think as women, we look at ourselves and we look at our reflection and we've tried so hard. Like, for me, it was like I tried so hard to get in shape for the role, and then I just didn't feel good enough. But then once people started calling me Daisy Duke, I felt like I could be someone else. I didn't have to be Jessica Simpson and Daisy Duke. I could just play a role. And so I did find comfort and a lot of confidence in that. I mean, I washed a car half naked. And it's the only time I've ever done that, by the way. But I mean, there were moments where I was confident, but I also was not.
Yeah.
You know, because then it was only my weight that was being talked about. It wasn't my first acting role or anything like that. And it's not that, like, Dukes of Hazzard, like, was challenging, you know, like, as an actress, but it was my first thing to do, you know, and it's like, but it was easy for me to say, like, I think something bounced up into my undercarriage, you know. But so, like, I felt a lot of freedom in that role, but I did feel insecure in ways because I knew that people were only looking at my body, and it really wasn't about it being my first movie, even though the movie did extremely well, you know, and I got, you know, other roles after that. Like, I went on to do Employee of the Month, which I loved, and it was a great experience, you know, and but then I just kind of retreated because all the shaming started happening because I was no longer Daisy Duke.
Right.
And so I think I put too much of that identity, you know, like I was trying to be that at all times. But then once I made my country record, I felt so at home in Nashville, and I felt like so at home in the world of country and so accepted. So when I walked up on the stage at a chili cook-off and had these pictures taken, and it was all over, I mean, it went like international, that I was fat, you know. I just, you know, it was heartbreaking, and I tried to, you know, and then, you know, throughout, like, our business with the Jessica Simpson collection, it was like, I need to embrace every woman, every size, because I can relate to that woman, and I need to make everyone feel as beautiful as they possibly can feel, you know, whether they're in short shorts, which they should be, wearing them with pride, you know. If that's what they want to wear and that's how they feel beautiful, then I wanted to be able to provide that. So I think that in that pain, I actually created something that was great and empowering for women. And but yes, I was still going through a lot of struggles on my own, but I always felt like a sense of relief and purpose when I could, you know, take those dark moments and make them into something better.
You talk about in the book a moment with your daughter Maxwell when it comes to body image, and her deciding to not have the bread that you were going to give her because she heard that it makes you fat.
Yeah, at 7 years old. Well, she was 6 years old at the time, yes.
So
that was very shocking to me because it's not something that we say around the house. I mean, my husband is extremely in shape and he eats about 8 bagels a day.
Oh, men. Love a man's metabolism.
With vegan cream cheese, by the way. But no, I was shocked because I mean, at 6 years old, she's talking about this, and she was saying that her friend's mom said that she couldn't eat bread because it would make her fat. And I was like, Maxwell, bread does not make you fat. You are absolutely authentically unique and beautiful, and you can eat whatever you want, honey. And she was like, oh, good, because I love bread.
Don't we all?
She was so relieved, and I think that as parents, yes, we need to promote health as much as possible, but let the child eat some bread.
Amen. One of the other themes that I loved in this book is the relationship that you talk about with your sister, Ashley. My sister, Christina, is here tonight, and I'm the oldest, and so she's my little sister. But having a sister and reading this book, and also reading about the relationship that you had growing up and also that you have today, is such a beautiful relationship. But you talk about in the beginning of the book, because of the job that your dad had, moving around a lot when you guys were little, and then also when you were starting your career, moving around a ton, and of course, in turn, bringing her around as well, and kind of the guilt that you felt and carried with you because she didn't have this stable or normal childhood.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when we moved from Texas to California, Ashley and I are 4 years apart, so she's 4 years younger than me, and I was 18, she was 14, and my family, we always did everything together, and my parents were always the ones who championed me to dream big and that anything was possible, and my father gave up ministry to go hit the road, and then all of a sudden, that was put on my sister without any say in the matter, but we were all going to go on the road as a family because we were a family and we wanted to stay together. And for a long time, and she was my backup dancer for a short while, and then, I could see her out of the corner of my eye, and she had her own party going on with the audience, and I could feel her presence being so powerful behind me. And she's just such a creative person, and has always been authentic and always been a superstar, and just owned herself. I've always been so. I've always admired Ashley so much for staying true to herself, and she never made me feel guilty about it. I just put that on myself. I thought I took her away from her childhood because I was following my dreams. And then, if you read the book, throughout the book, when I go and watch her perform Chicago as Roxy, I watch her own this moment and own the stage, and it gave me so much peace that she was also at home on the stage, and that was her destiny as well. But for a long time, I did feel guilty about that because I never wanted her to feel like she had to do what I had to do. But she did what I did, and actually has more #1 albums than I do, and more #1 songs, and has sold more records than me.
But I think you guys both went into the same industry. And I always love, I have a sister, and to see the relationship change and evolve over time is fascinating to me. And, I'm so blessed to have her in my life and to have such a close relationship with my sister and also with my two brothers. But to be both in the industry that you're in and to be so supportive of one another is really, I think, an incredible accomplishment. I don't know if that was your mother's doing or your guys' doing or your father, but I think that it's incredibly admirable as somebody who has a sister, I think, to look at you two and to see how you guys are constantly not only encouraging one another, but being each other's biggest fan. And you talk about the moment when you saw her perform and getting emotional because you
I cried my eyes out. We were in London, and I would go and I would watch her rehearse, and then I'd watch her perform and get standing ovations, and everybody's throwing roses at her, and it was just such I took so much pride in that moment because I saw her just being authentically herself, and the presence that she has on stage. I mean, she had it off stage too. She was always the entertainer in our family. I mean, she would be the one that would stand up and, just entertain the whole family when I'd be shy in the corner. She's always been authentically herself, and I've always had respect for her. I mean, she was a mother before I was, and I saw how incredibly compassionate she was, and she's so incredibly intuitive, and she's just an amazing leader. And she really knows how to express herself through her art and through motherhood. I think the older we get in our relationship, the better it is, because we do have so much more, respect for each other in what we do. I mean, what we do is a lot of the same, but we have different audiences and we have different fans. But then I was just in New Jersey, and I had a guy who came up to me and was like, "Your sister drew my tattoo." So I had her fans at my events.
So great.
And that was actually so powerful because they were there to support her by supporting me. So it's been a beautiful experience to watch my sister grow up and be so strong.
I know we have to get to audience questions, but I just want to ask my last question to you, which is, in your video that I was watching, and of course in your book, you talk a huge amount about fear. And fear is something that I think that every single person in this audience can relate to.
Yeah.
And why I think your book is resonating so incredibly well with so many people is because you talk about that so openly. Just to end on that, what would you say to people about how you navigate through fear in your life today?
I think we are more powerful than our fears, but I also think that we can use our fears to understand ourselves more. And I think that we can use fear as a tool to guide us in so many ways, because when we face that fear head on, and we have an understanding of what that fear is, and we know that that fear cannot defeat us as human beings, and we have that choice to own that fear and to lead with that fear, and to walk through that fear and to get onto the other side, where once you walk through that fear and the light surrounds you and holds you, it's as if it just all diminishes and goes away, and that fear was actually what drove you to greatness. And I think accepting the fear as a tool to be someone better, with better perspective, with forgiveness for ourselves, and loving ourselves and getting through that. The challenge of that is so rewarding, and it is so beautiful.
It is. It's beautiful. It's in the book. It's a beautiful book. So I think we have some audience questions.
Yeah, thank you all for sending in some questions. We'll go through a few of those. Jessica, your kids weren't around when you were touring a lot. How well do they know Mom the singer?
Well, I didn't. The first time that they saw me on stage, I thought I was going to be releasing music soon after. It was they saw me on stage about after I had gotten sober. I had recorded a song that I wrote with John Shanks and a beautiful girl named Allie. And I just, what?
You just keep talking.
I thought she said, "Why'd you do that?"
Yeah, she did.
Why did I write a song for me and Willie Nelson? Sorry. No, but my kids experienced like me on stage, and I didn't know that I was pregnant with Birdie at the time. So I thought this was going to be the beginning of them seeing me like constantly on stage, because I thought I was about to release music. And but I was happy that their first time seeing me on stage was with one of my angels, Willie Nelson, and it was such a beautiful, it was just such a beautiful moment for me. And for my children, and Maxwell knew that she listened to Willie Nelson when she was a baby, that he was basically the one that was singing her lullabies. But now that they're seeing me in such like now they're 6 and 7, Ace and Max, and they are taking it all in so beautifully. And Birdie will only know me this way.
Right.
She will only know me as the songbird. And she was in my belly when I was writing all of this, and when I was singing the music, she was inside of me. So now we all get to experience it together, and I think that they would listen. They listen to my Christmas album even in the summer.
Well,
so
it's an amazing album.
Yeah. So it's really cute to be able to experience that with them now, especially with a very clear mind.
What was it like filming Price of Beauty? Would you want to do something like that again?
Oh, sorry. Price of Beauty was extremely powerful for me. It was after I had gotten out of a very destructive relationship, and I had said, I am done forever with you, with this, and I need to find what it is that makes a woman beautiful and unique in every different, in all the countries that we could go to. It was a really powerful show that I did with VH1, and going into all these different cultures and what defined beauty, it was so different everywhere. And, it would, in Paris, it was a lot of the fashion models and being anorexic, and then in Uganda, it was being in a fattening hut. Like, the fatter you are, the more beautiful you are, because they want you to look like their prized possession, which is a cow, And then, we would go into Thailand, and then the longer your neck is, the more beautiful, and the torture that they would go through for that. And then in Brazil, it was plastic surgery, and it was just so interesting to go across the world and see how women, what defined beauty to women. And I realized through all of that, the thread of what it is to be beautiful is to be your authentic and unique self, that it's really only something that a culture cannot define, but only we as people can in our own lives.
Love that.
Jessica, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would you tell her?
Hold on. Just to be a little bit more prepared. No, I really, my younger self, I just kind of went with the flow, and I think that I would probably just tell her to be a little bit nicer to herself.
I watched you perform in the USA tour while stationed in Naples, Italy. What was that experience like for you, and would you be doing that again?
Wait, say that again? Sorry.
Gentleman says, I watched you perform on the USO tour while stationed in Naples, Italy. What was that experience like, and would you do that again?
Absolutely, I would do it again. The USO tours were so unbelievably powerful for me, to watch these men and women out there sacrificing their lives for, our freedom. And I couldn't understand it until I was actually in the middle of it, when I was in Afghanistan, or if I was you know, in Iraq. I mean, I was in all of these places, and all of these people were younger than me, and I saw their bravery, and when they would sing God Bless America, they would weep, and I realized that the song was actually a prayer. I never reflected on it that way, but these men and women were truly asking God to bless America from such a beautiful and powerful and brave place that was true sacrifice. And I will, until the day I die, do anything that I can for the military and for our troops. Yes, and I mean, I'll wear my Daisy Dukes again, and I will put a Santa Claus outfit on if I have to.
All right, our final question for the evening. Between singing, acting, or running your business empire, which one of these do you find the most rewarding?
For me, it all started with music, and when I'm on stage and I can close my eyes, or if I'm in a writing session and I can just be vulnerable, that is a really true connection with myself and with the power of my voice and with my calling. And music has always led me home. It's always led me to my heart, and it's always been something that is my way of communication to myself and to others. Everything, I mean, doing, you know, roles and acting, like it's fun to do like rom-coms and make people laugh and have a good 2 hours. And then with the fashion line, to make women feel confident at every size and to give something to women that they can afford. I mean, that's the most beautiful and rewarding thing. I mean, it all kind of goes together, and it's all my voice, but I mean, my soul connection will always be through music.
Okay, well, I think that's it. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you,
This was such a
Katherine.
treat for me. I think on behalf of all these people here and all women, we thank you for your vulnerability.
Thank you.
Everyone go read the book. It's incredible. You're truly courageous for writing this book. And
Thank you so much.
I thank you as a fan and someone who's
And
looked
we
up
all
to
look
you.
forward to yours coming.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.